Welcome to the third honest Koh Tao Travel Guide. I'm from the Tourism Authority of Thailand, where we now admit that two tiny Burmese guys were wrongfully convicted of the UK backpacker murders. We hate making these admissions, but there has been 3 significant events recently that highlight so much about Thailand that is fake. These are in addition to the matters raised in our first 2 honest Koh Tao travel guides.
Firstly, in 2019, we had a fake democratic election where our military dictator was elected. He tore up the old constitutions and had yet another new constitution drafted under new bias rules that heavily favoured his election. Secondly, in September 2019, a senior Thai minister was exposed as having a fake PhD from a fake university. The only real things exposed were some convictions in Sydney for attempting to smuggle drugs into Australia. He remained defiant despite the revelations. Thirdly, in October 2019, a Thai judge in the Yala Provincial Court shot himself in the chest in court after acquitting 5 defendants of murder despite being pressured to convict them without evidence.
Many observers in the Koh Tao murder trial felt that the convictions of the Burmese guys were set in concrete long before the trial actually started.
After all, the Koh Tao Mafia have many friends in high places, including the military dictator, a succession of police chiefs, and senior politicians.
The Mafia have a particularly cozy relationship with Lady Justice herself, the goddess of justice, Justicia. Justicia is a distinguished and beautiful lady. She likes perfume too. You never guess what she puts behind her ears that gets the Koh Tao Mafia aroused. Her ankles. Well, the video is age restricted. Are you with me? It's not just drug tourists who are abused by the Koh Tao Mafia, you know.
I mean, when a Thai judge reveals that decisions in death penalty cases are decided by people other than the judges, who am I to argue? It's ironic that even the name Thailand is fake. It means land of the free, but in Thailand, free speech is crushed by draconian criminal defamation laws. In addition, hundreds of thousands of modern-day slaves in Thailand have no freedom at all. And the long name of the capital Bangkok actually means City of Angels, but too many devils have power.
A host of human rights hippies accused the Royal Thai Police of using torture to extract false or fake confessions from the 2 Burmese scapegoats. I know the police denied they tortured the little scapegoats. I also know that a taxi driver reportedly accused the police of using intimidation and bribery in an attempt to have him give false evidence against the scapegoats. Even the court heard from one of the prosecution's own witnesses who said in cross-examination that he noticed that one of the scapegoats looked bruised upon returning to his cell after interrogation. So there's some controversy over whether or not the police tortured the scapegoats. But I can assure you that the police never mistreated or tortured the little guys in any way. Just kidding. Our police tortured the shit out of them. Standard operating procedure. Is Thailand corrupt? If you think so, type corrupt in the comments below. I mean, you'd have to be as dopey as dog shit to think that the police are above torturing some insignificant migrant workers they consider subhuman. In fact, one of the few things Thailand is good at is torture. There's a link to a video below depicting torture and corporal punishment dished out throughout Thai society, including within schools, temples, and army bases. One rather original form of torture on display at the Bangkok Torture Museum involved an elephant and a large rattan ball. A prisoner would be forced inside the ball, which had sharp objects pointing inwards. An elephant would then have soccer practice with the ball containing the helpless human. Now that we've admitted to false conviction and the use of torture, I'll enlighten you with our very reasonable explanation for framing those scapegoats.
Firstly, the police needed to ensure that all those walking ATMs, known as tourists, kept coming to Koh Tao, so they had to be seen as solving the murders quickly. The problem was, of course, that the actual killers were too well connected. They were above the law, so the police had to find some lowly scapegoats, which is what they always do in these situations. It's an integral part of Thai culture to take no responsibility for one's actions, but to blame someone else of lower status whenever things go wrong. Foreigners are reminded that it is incumbent upon them to completely embrace all aspects of Thai culture, from torture to scapegoating to rampant corruption and fraud. That's not too much to ask. Just ask any drunken expat barfly who will graciously share the same wisdom. The police thought about framing the Ware brothers from Jersey. Then they thought about framing members of a visiting football team before finally selecting 2 Burmese guys. They initially wanted to frame 3 Burmese guys, but one guy, Mung Mung, had an alibi that was a bit too solid. Having chosen their targets, the police then needed to fabricate some evidence with which to frame them. In contrast, whenever the police actually have compelling evidence against a suspect for any crime, it isn't necessary to torture them or concoct any false evidence against them. In the Koh Tao case, they cleverly engaged in scientific fraud by creating what is known as an unendorsed report that supposedly showed that the scapegoat's DNA was found on the body of one victim. Bloody genius, huh? Naturally, 2 sets of fake evidence are better than one. False confessions would support the bogus DNA evidence, and the bogus DNA evidence would support the false confessions. It's then always really helpful when large sections of the British mainstream media publish highly superficial accounts, which lets the police sweep everything under the rug without much scrutiny. Bless those lazy fake journalists.
It could have been bloody embarrassing when the pesky Melbourne DNA expert Jane Torpin arrived in Thailand and instantly noticed that the unendorsed report lacked a stamp or seal. Those stamps certify that the police had the correct accreditation and had followed accepted international procedures in creating the report. Luckily for the police and the prosecutor, the Thai defence lawyers chose not to call her to testify. The police laboratory actually breached the relevant standard, ISO 17025, by allowing its unendorsed report to be used as evidence in a double murder trial. But they got away with it and the judges accepted the garbage as if it was actually credible. But I digress.
The police tortured the scapegoats to secure those vital false confessions, and the end justifies the means. How else were the police going to get the scapegoats to confess to the crimes they didn't commit? It was all for the benefit of foreign tourists to give them the false sense of security that Koh Tao is a safe holiday destination. A bit more gratitude wouldn't go astray. Of course, whenever a trial has been prejudged, it also allows the judges and prosecutors to catch up on sleep as happened in the Koh Tao trial. That is court efficiency. Any good investigation in Thailand must start with the end in mind. It would be most unwise for an investigation to follow the evidence, establish the facts, then charge and convict the actual culprits.
It's fascinating that many so-called journalists in Britain don't even explain what the word investigation means in Thailand. Investigation means cover up. When Thai police say they're launching an investigation into a crime, it normally means they're launching a cover-up. So before everyone gets too critical about everything fake in Thailand, it can be a good idea to think about all the fake British journalists. Most British editors and journalists can barely join the dots of corruption, fraud, lies and fake evidence right in front of them, and some can barely find the dots. They just can't do it. Many of them simply quote the lies from the Thai police without warning that the source is notoriously unreliable. Sure, they're brilliant at writing false and misleading headlines, but many were rejects from remedial join the dots class in primary school. Hopefully you now understand that Thailand is justified in sentencing scapegoats to death. But what is Britain's excuse for having so many fake journalists? Let us know what you think in the comments below.